Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Burgundy Zone. I am your host, Kyle, and welcome to the podcast meetup for the Washington football team fans. I am joined by some great people. First off, Freddie Ham, the HTWeAre podcast. How you doing, sir?
Great, thanks for having us.
And the uber talented Maddie Crocker, the co-host of the HTWeAre podcast.
Thanks so much for having us this morning.
Of course, I'm missing the guitar. And then always are bringing back our friend Ian Bacon. How you doing, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. Afternoon, everyone.
Hey, guys, the first thing that we have to talk about, I hope everyone had a happy Halloween, ate lots of candy, watched some good Halloween movies. But we have to talk about the Washington football team. And the latest news that came about was that Ryan Kerrigan has asked for a trade. Maddie, what's your immediate reaction to that?
Well, I think my immediate reaction is if we get something good enough, go ahead and make the move. I know a lot of people talked about, wanting to trade him anyway. And so my thought is, well, what if he wants to stay? He says he wants to, be here his whole career. But hearing that, I'm like, okay, if the price is right, let's make it happen. We see what we have in our young guys and it'll be sad, but, you know, that's draft capital that we could definitely use in this rebuild period. So
Yeah, and that was my reaction too. Just I would be very, very sad just to see Ryan Kerrigan go. But like you said, Maddie,
yeah.
for what's the right price? And what's your opinion on that, Freddie?
Uh, you know, right price. I mean, that's really, really hard to say. I wouldn't let him go for anything less than a fifth round pick. I feel like, a fourth round pick would be great, but I feel like that's a little bit unrealistic. And then also, something to keep in mind here: the report that came down from Adam Schefter was that Kerrigan himself requested the trade.
Mm,
So it's kind of taking a step back from, at the beginning of the season, he was saying he wanted to be here for the long haul. But I feel like the reason why this is sort of rearing its head at this time is that, Ryan's got to the point he understands he's getting towards the end of his career, but he's also seeing that he's being able to achieve this level of production that he's got. And he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. So if we trade him away, he's just going to be a rental to a team. And
right.
then if we keep him here, he's still probably going to be gone most likely anyways. And he knows that by sitting out these snaps, it's going to hurt him when it comes time for probably the final contract of his career. So I understand that.
Yep.
And I don't see a team giving us a fourth or maybe even a fifth round pick for a rental till the end of the season. And I mean, if we're just going to get a sixth round pick for him, then I sort of understand probably what the reasoning is for the whole organization to just keep him here. He's a leader. We're going to get a level of production out of him. He's professional. He's not going to make a whole bunch of noise. So, I mean, I feel like he's just going to be here and he'll be gone in the off season.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you. But the one point that I'm trying to make is like this doesn't just seem like it's going to happen because Ron Rivera talked about earlier in the week the role model that Ryan Kerrigan is for Montez Sweat and Chase Young and how much they're learning from Ryan, and he does bring another facet to their game because when he is on the field, we've seen he's incredibly productive, one of the best in the NFL. So as the Washington football team, they're going to sit here and say, I need some very good compensation, and I think you're right, Freddie. I don't think anybody's going to be able to put up the type of compensation Washington is looking for unless it's player for player. And the one team that I'm looking at is Pittsburgh. Juju Smith-Schuster, he's on his contract year. They might not bring him back next year, so this could be two teams saying, look, let's help one another out. And as long as Chase Claypool keeps balling out, there's a very good chance that could happen. I'm just not sure it's going to happen in 2 days. What about you, Ian? Do you think Kerrigan's going to leave?
Much as I'd love him to stay, and I've only got one player shirt, and it's the 91 of Kerrigan. Yeah,
I know that's your boy.
I think he possibly will. At least he's been honest, I guess, and it's him that's requesting this, and he's not doing it through an agent or anything like that. I think it would be obviously a shame to lose him because you can't really put a price on the fact that he's a role model. Chase Young's done numerous tweets and whatever about, listening to the master and stuff like that. But, if he wants more snaps and, he's obviously broken the franchise record and perhaps he's thinking, this is perhaps my last chance if I go somewhere else to get to get a shot at the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and
because however well we may do bouncing on the back of last week's result this season, we're not going to win the Super Bowl this year, much as I'd love us to, but we're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. And perhaps he's thinking if he did go somewhere like Pittsburgh, who are the only unbeaten team at the moment, that could enhance his chances of getting a Super Bowl ring.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Now, John Keim immediately went after this news and talked about how this isn't breaking news. This didn't just happen this week. Ryan Kerrigan requested a trade a long time ago, and not that many teams have been calling, to be perfectly honest. Freddie, do you believe John in that this has been accumulating over time, and does that make you think that it's not going to happen?
Probably so. But again, I feel like the reason why this is coming out now is because we're coming down to crunch time. So it's very likely that he could have requested that. But, there's a big difference between players requesting a trade and when a report comes out that a player is demanding a trade. I don't feel like Ryan Kerrigan is unhappy. But to be totally honest with you, if he was unhappy, we wouldn't know because he's a professional and he's not going to make a big stink in the media. That's just not what he does. I don't know. I don't even know how I feel about it. As a fan, I want him to stay here. But certainly I also do understand that he probably wants to win because he hasn't won here his whole career, and he knows what his value is. But this is the thing. His value probably from a talent standpoint would still, at this point, I would say would be a third or a fourth round.
Correct.
But it's just not out there.
Right.
I know it's not. And if it was, I think we would have traded him.
Yeah. And my thought process with this, from what John is saying, is that they had put him out there saying, yes, he is on the trading block, and nobody was calling. Nobody was calling about anything. But with 2 days left, they're saying, all right, let's make this news kind of public in a way, so that way maybe teams will see this news and say, all right, yeah, let's see what we can offer you. How do you interpret this situation, MaddieJane?
I think... again, like Freddie said, like you said, around this time, everything's going to get brought up, everything, obviously that we're going to need stuff to talk about. But I think at the end of the day, I don't know. I think that, I think at this point it's going to be hard for it to get done. And
Right.
So no matter what the talk is and no matter what the reports are and stuff like that, as good as it probably could be for both parties if something could get done as far as a good pick, or like you said, Juju, listen, I'm all for that.
Yeah.
That could happen. Let's make it happen. I just, I think at this point we're talking about it because it's being brought up, but I think as we get closer to the deadline, it's just going to be another thing like, oh, well, we talked about it and it didn't get done, but it was good to talk about. So that's kind of where I'm at with it at this point. So.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Look, as much as a dream scenario that would be with the Pittsburgh Steelers, and most likely it's just not going to happen. That's just, I think player for player is probably the best way that it could go down. Now, let's move on to another player that could possibly be on the trading block, and that is Dwayne Haskins. And the Washington football team got released last night that they would be willing to trade him for the right price. So, Ian, what do you think that right price is?
I don't know. It depends on what Ron and co say about him, about what they say to other teams about what may or may not have happened off the field and behind the scenes. I think there's definitely a feeling that he's going to go, whether it's a clash of personalities or whatever it is. But what that price is, because he hasn't started that many games really, and hasn't sort of proven himself in some respects. Yes, he's got huge talent and huge potential, but he hasn't had the opportunity to perhaps show it yet, because he hasn't had the long stretch of games. So what that price is, I don't know.
Yeah, look, my father-in-law, he was sent me a rant yesterday talking about how the quality control of the Washington football team over the past 20 years has been just abysmal. How these players that they put on the trading block have lost all their production, all their value, and they get chump change back. And he believes the same thing happened with Dwayne Haskins. I do think he is correct in that mind. And that's it kind of brings me to Ian, where Dwayne hasn't seen that many snaps. So you could say he hasn't reached his potential yet. You don't truly know what that potential is. What about you, Freddie? What do you think it would garner for the Washington football team to send away Haskins?
Really, I think we would be very, very, very lucky again to get
7th.
I mean, yeah. I mean, this is the problem with Haskins. The problem is that we drafted him in the first round. He really proved to be a 3rd or 4th round developmental project, and now everybody knows it. Yeah. And everybody also knows that his time here is done, regardless. So there's not really any big incentive there. And the thing is, I'm not saying that, talent like his comes around all the time, but for where he's at with his ability, his mechanics, everything else, I mean, and let alone all of the issues that come with him, the maturity and all that kind of stuff, and the things that we're speculating about that we don't really know what's happened. I mean, yeah, that puts him in 6th, 7th round. And why even give that up when you can draft your own developmental project in the 6th or the 7th round who isn't damaged goods already? So yeah, it's a terrible position. But hey, it's the Washington quarterback. That's what we do.
Yeah. And look, the way I'm seeing this work out is that teams are going to say, okay, we're just going to wait for you to release him. And the Washington football team are going to be somewhat greedy in a way and say, why would we need to do that? I want to see him progress. I want to see him work hard, and let's see if he can turn the corner. And so they're kind of put in this scenario where Dwayne Haskins is almost prisoner to the Washington football team to just go to work. And it's his camp trying to get out as much as they can, try to get out of this. But I don't see them doing it. What about you, Maddie?
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think that, again, this from the jump, this was a tough situation. Obviously, we heard that, this was Dan's pick, and, Kyle and the team wanted to go a different way. They wanted to go for Montez off the bat, different things like that we've heard. And so from the jump, it was just already a mess. And that does happen a decent bit here. And so, again, like you said, like the way that we've teed this up, there's no really good solution, I think, or good outcome. It's going to be messy regardless. It's going to be, something we're all like, man, that was just a rough time. Just like so many other things. It's like, oh, that was just a mistake. That was just, wasted time. We all thought this was this, and it's, not. So I don't know that we'll get much of anything if we do. I mean, I do think I like the idea of not, like you said, keeping Haskins prisoner, because as much as, this has happened, he's still a young quarterback trying to just make his way in this league, and he does have talent. So if he can go somewhere where, he's wanted and can develop that and become something, that's great. Good for him. I would love to see that. So I would like for us to trade him just to get that fresh start. And again, on both sides, get that fresh start, because obviously he wasn't Ron's guy either. We need to move forward. I think everybody just needs to move forward. So if we could do that and get something at this point, just do it. I think just do it.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point about the way that this seems to be going and ending, right? In flames, you could say. And that is something that a lot of beat reporters, a lot of people that have worked around this organization say all relationships end in that building in that way. But I don't think this is the same type of situation that we've seen in the past. I feel like this is just this was foregone conclusion. It was going to end this way because of the situation that the coach was put in, and same with the player. So I don't think it's like the old ways coming back again. Oh, same old watch. I just feel like this situation had to end this way. There is no clean way to go about it. Now, that being said, the reason that we're doing this podcast meetup is because we're basically halfway through the season. 8 weeks in, and now it's 17 weeks through the season. So let's kind of get a gauge on this Washington football team from a fan podcast aspect. And each one of us brought a segment here to talk about today. Ian wanted to talk about the game next week, so I feel like that is a great segue. So, Ian, if you want to go right ahead.
But it was just coming on the back, obviously, of the victory last week, and then looking at the previous week's result when we lost by the single point at the Giants. Just how everybody thought we were going to go into that game, and obviously we're all hoping for a win. But what we think perhaps the mentality of the team might be after having a win, but then the bye week coming after it.
Yeah, Maddie, you want to go first?
I think there was a lot, and I've talked about this a lot, but just the situation. I think it was a great situation. Obviously, the Giants. We wish we could have won that game. It's tough. It was close, but I think just the fact that the team performed so well on all cylinders, like you're talking about, offense, defense, special teams. It seemed like the offense started clicking, different things. Like maybe they were starting to say, okay, this is what we can do, this is what we can't do, and this is coming. A bye week's coming up, so we have this time. You have time to kind of really evaluate, kind of rest, kind of look back on things. I think it was, and again, think about if we would have lost to the Cowboys, especially in their decimated state, and then gone into this bye week, I think it would have just been completely all hope is lost for any, because again, of course, are we thinking like going to the Super Bowl? No, we're not. But the playoffs, whatever, the division is very open. And so if we would have lost this game, I think it would have just been like, why are we even talking? Why are we even sitting? It's just another one of those seasons. But because of the situation we're in, because we did beat the Cowboys and we played a full game, it felt like a full 4-quarter game. I just thought that it was perfect timing for that to happen, especially too since we have the bye week in the mid of the season. So I think that the team's going to come out and respond really well to what happened against the Cowboys, and I think they're going to build on that because I think that's the type of culture that Ron has cultivated, and just as a coach over the years, that's how he's been. Like, you start building something, it's just going to grow from where it is. It's not going to, so I think that, you have the certain players that are going to come in, like the Terrys, the John Allens, that are going to come in and be like, all right, let's remember what we did here. Let's do that, and let's do it better against the Giants. So I think it's going to be a good game. Of course, off a bye week, there may be a little rust to knock off, but I have a feeling that they're going to come out and respond, and I think they're going to look even a lot different than they did just playing the Giants a couple weeks ago.
And you're absolutely right about that, Maddie, because I was on the DC Tweet Team podcast after that Giants game, and it was doom and gloom. But I was different than everybody else because I felt encouraged by what I saw in that fourth quarter, with Kyle Allen being able to lead down this field, getting that touchdown to Cam Sims, but missing the 2-point conversion. I know that was a lot, but I felt encouraged by that. And what I needed to see was the Washington football team not just do it in one quarter. I needed them to do it in the entire game, all 4 quarters, and that's what they did against Dallas. And I said it then on the DC 2 Team podcast. I felt the next time this team was going to face the Giants, it was going to be a much different team, and I feel the same exact way. I feel way more confident about this team heading into the Giants game this week than I did 2 or 3 weeks ago. They're playing with confidence. They understand that, and Jack Del Rio kind of had a strong opinion about it because he said they're doing things the right way. That's why they're seeing the benefits. So I'm right there with you, Maddie. I'm going to piggyback off of you. I do think they are going to dominate the Giants next week, and they're not going to shoot themselves in the foot over and over again with fumbles and dumb interceptions. As long as Kyle Allen can keep control of the football, I think they will win that game. What about you, Freddie?
I really kind of there's part of me that wishes that we were playing the Giants right after we had played the Cowboys. I think a lot of people feel this way, and I do like on paper, I liked that the bye week came right in the middle of the season. It's great, but I feel like that could be a momentum killer a little bit in a way. But with the way that this team is built and the leadership they have in that locker room, and with Coach Rivera, like MaddieJane said, I feel like they're going to be able to keep it up. And what I expect against the Giants next weekend is, like you said, I expect domination. I expect a team that's going to come out there and say, hey, look what we can do. We know what we can do. Look what we did to a team that is better than the team we lost to the week before by less than a point. And people are going to go nuts on me where I'm saying that the Cowboys are better than the Giants, but I believe the Cowboys are better than the Giants. So I just think that it should be a complete and total shellacking. I want that team to walk away feeling completely and utterly abused, like they stole something. Like I just want them to be beaten to the ground, buried, burned at the stake, so on and so forth. And I'm hoping that Chase Young will light the fire, and then Terry McLaurin can piss on the ashes.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, dude. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Ian, I hope that answered your question pretty well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as well, something that hopefully goes in our favour with us having the bye week and being rested. The Giants are playing Monday night, aren't they, against the Eagles? So they could well come beat up from that as well. So hopefully we've got the advantage on that point as well. But I see nothing other than a win for us.
Yeah, great point on there, Ian. That's fantastic. Now let's move on to my segment, which is going to be who would you rather have? And this is strictly for the NFC East. So we're going to go by position, guys. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, even defense. Who would you rather have in the NFC East at that position? Because I have a point to prove at the end of it. So, Ian, I'll start with you. At the quarterback position, the NFC East, who would you have starting at quarterback?
I'd have a fit Dak.
Dak? Okay, an uninjured Dak. Okay, I agree with you there. I think it's Carson Wentz, and as of right now, the way I'm looking at the NFC East right now, Carson Wentz is playing very well the last couple weeks. Obviously, his offensive line has been depleted, but he is getting Jalen Reagor back. So, as of right now, I have Wentz above Kyle Allen. I'm not factoring in Dak. I'm sorry, Ian. I should have said injuries withstanding. But I think Wentz is the quarterback. What about you, Maddie? Who would you go at quarterback?
Well, like you said, if we're accounting for injuries, obviously my answer would be Dak, if not. But I think I would go with you. I think Wentz, because there is that, again, of course, the beginning of a season, and, he has his ups and downs as a quarterback, but I do think that his ability is obviously there. And I think he knows how to lead a team. And I think that experience also goes a long way. But he also is elusive. He can, he makes the passes. He's a great quarterback, I think. So I'd go Wentz.
Yeah, what about you, Freddie? Do you agree with us?
I'm going Ben DiNucci, actually.
Ooh.
No. I think we're all in agreement on Wentz. But my reasoning for Wentz just comes down to one thing, and that's experience. Because I think one of the biggest issues, the problem with this division, why it's in the state it's in, is so many young, inexperienced players. And I feel like, Wentz being a veteran just automatically gives you a leg up. All quarterbacking aside, which I feel like he is the best quarterback right now since Dak is hurt.
Right.
But I'll take him just for his veteran savvy.
All right, so Ian, that's my fault because I didn't describe it very well. So this is just strictly looking at the back end of the season. If we're looking strictly this season in the back end, what player would you want at that position? Okay, so injuries don't withstand. Let's move to running back then, Freddie. Start us off with running back. Who would you have starting running back in the NFC East?
Ezekiel Elliott. Simple, easy. I'm not even going to explain my answer. Zeke.
I have to disagree. I have to go with Antonio Gibson, and the reason is Ezekiel Elliott just cannot stop fumbling the football and is having trouble catching the ball as well. It seems like in Dallas, they just all are playing fidgety and not playing well right now. So if I'm looking at the end of the season, Antonio Gibson is picking up speed. He's looking, Mike Reed, our co-host, said on our podcast earlier this week that Antonio Gibson reminded him of a younger Le'Veon Bell, that kind of bigger back that can run through arm tackles and is a kind of patient runner. It's just right now Antonio Gibson's not seeing the holes well, but that can be fixed, and I definitely think that'll go down the stretch. What about you, Maddie?
You know what? I know I'm gonna sound like such a homer, but I'm gonna stick with you. I'm gonna go with you, Antonio Gibson. I think obviously, he's still learning how to be a running back. There's still things that he's working on, developing in, growing in. But the potential, the upside is just there, and every week he's getting better and better. I mean, look at how he played against the Cowboys. That's RB1 numbers right there. So I think with him, he looks like he can do it all, and I'm taking the weapon, AG.
And what about you, Ian? Do you agree with me and Maddie, or are you going with Freddie?
No, I agree. Zeke's the turnover king at the moment. So, definitely Antonio Gibson.
Yeah, Freddie is the smart one because that's the obvious one that's the most talent. You're absolutely right. But just look at the end of the season, the way they're playing right now, I have to go with Gibson. So here is the real question here at wide receiver, Freddie. Who do you have going with?
Scary Terry McLaurin.
Yes, sir. It's easy answer, right? Because
it's an easy answer. He's the dude is just. What do you want to talk about? You want to talk about his athletic ability. You want to talk about his leadership. You want to talk about how he makes the catch. You want to talk about his speed, his route running. Him having the best GIF image on Twitter right now.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. That smiling GIF of him leaving Trayvon Diggs in the dust. That was absolutely perfect camera work. And
fantastic.
I have to agree with you. Terry McLaurin is outplaying every wide receiver in this division right now. Everyone wants to talk about how talented the Cowboys are, But look, if you don't have a quarterback throwing to them, they can't do all that well. And if I don't care if I'm starting a franchise today and I only have a pool of wide receivers in the NFC East, I'm picking Terry McLaurin number 1 10 times out of 10. What about you, Maddie?
I will say, I'll preface this by saying that wide receiver by far is my favorite position in football. I've always felt that way. I still feel that way. I'm gonna go with Terry as well, but I will say there are some receivers on the Cowboys. Like I like CD. I liked him coming out of the draft. I like CD. I like Amari. I like their receivers, but there's no way you can't pick Terry. He's the man.
Absolutely.
He is the man. So Terry all the way.
So now this is a questionable one because tight end. Who would you pick in the NFC East right now to play tight end for your team? The Philly is injury depleted. They're getting Goddard back this week. And then Schultz in Dallas and Ingram in New York with Logan Thomas in Washington. Ian, who would you pick at tight end?
What's the you're gonna have to excuse me? What's the name of the tight end for Philly?
Dallas Goddard. Zach Ertz is out.
Zach Ertz is out.
He's on IR. Yes. It's actually, if we're looking at the back end of the season, sure, you can go Ertz.
Yeah, Ertz is where I would think, especially if he is coming back. I think he's the best in the NFC East at the moment, and he's still some way off. I think a lot of the others that you see around the league, but I think he's probably the best for me.
Yeah, I have to disagree. I have to go with Dallas Goedert. He is very, very special. There was a reason why Philly was trying to shop Zach Ertz in the preseason, and that's because Dallas Goedert is that good. And as soon as he gets plugged in, he's a number 1 wide receiver. I love Logan Thomas. I'm a Virginia Tech fan, but if we're looking at the end of the season and how good these guys are, reality is Dallas Goedert is head and shoulders above. What about you, Maddie?
I probably would have to go. That's a tough one. I'm probably gonna go Goddard as well, just because, yeah, like you said, I mean he's just a great tight end. I think obviously Ertz. I think Dalton Schultz is a pretty good. He's shown to be developing into a pretty good tight end as well. And Logan Thomas has been doing well for us, but I think at this point Goddard seems to be the one where you really could build with, and you probably could count on even now in this moment. So I'll go Goddard as well.
I'm you. Great minds think alike, don't they, Matt? What about you, Fred?
I think it's going to be a clean sweep, Goddard.
Yeah.
If Ertz is healthy, obvious, but again, Goddard is the obvious choice. I will say though, I'm a small fan of Evan Ingram, and I like his upside.
Yeah, I do too. And look, he's kind of the Jordan Reed-esque kind of tight end, the elusive, fast dude, but he just seems to not be getting the targets right now up in New York with Daniel Jones' inability to throw the football, like we saw against Washington. Let's go to O-line. I don't want to break down by position on O-line, but I feel like this is probably one of the most difficult areas that we're going to have to deal with on this list. So, Freddie, I'll start with you. Since you're the dude, what O-line are you going with?
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, these are hard, ain't they?
Which O-line do I go with?
Looking towards the end of the season.
Towards the end of the season?
Just this season.
I'm taking our offensive line.
Damn it.
I really am. Especially with Morgan Moses playing well. Yes. Saw Maddie's reaction. With Morgan Moses playing well, with Brandon Sheriff, with the production that we've gotten out of Wes Schweitzer, and Christian kind of starting to come on, and even us getting really good play last week from Cornelius Lucas. I know that we have a little bit of a liability there in Wes Martin, but I think there's a lot to be said for the cohesion, and everyone else with all of their injuries, and notwithstanding we've had injuries as well. But the O-line is so much about chemistry. And honestly, I mean, you can't pick any team in the NFC East has a great offensive line. I'm going with our offensive line.
Yeah, I agree with you, Freddie. The one aspect I'm looking at this with is every offensive line has dealt with injuries, right? But which offensive line looked the best during that time? And I know that the Giants have a pretty good offensive line with Will Hernandez and everyone there, but I just have a feeling with this offensive line looking forward, they're playing together. Brandon Sheriff and Morgan Moses, when we had Morgan on the show, he talked about they're best friends. And when Morgan was getting escorted off, Brandon Sheriff was right there next to him. When Brandon was out, Morgan had the C on his chest, acting as a temporary captain during that time. I think this offensive line is the best unit in the NFC East right now. They're playing like it. We saw last week with the Dallas Cowboys. Their injuries are just too much to overwhelming. The Eagles, we don't know how. Are they getting any better with their offensive line? Doesn't look like it. And then the Giants, Will Hernandez possibly on IR with like COVID restrictions. I'd go with Washington right now. What about you, Matt? Are you drinking the Kool-Aid?
I would have to say, but I will say I feel like it's more of a not like which offensive line is best, but like which one is just not the worst at this point, because obviously they all kind of feel bottom of the barrel, and that's just is what it is. But I will say I do think that there could be something kind of, like you said, the chemistry. There's something that could be developing with Washington's offensive line that I think it makes it the better choice, and I do think there are at least multiple pieces at this point that actually are your guys moving forward, whereas, on Dallas and Philly, they're literally just playing like we've done in recent years with guys off the street. So I do think we have more where it's like we're trying to find those pieces, and I think some of them are possibly going to be those pieces. So in that way as well, I'm going Washington.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. And I've said this to Cowboys fans over the years. I said, you guys keep paying these flashy positions, quarterback, running back, wide receiver. You're not putting money on defensive line or offensive line, and one day it's going to catch up to you. And as much as you guys love to talk about how much talent you have, when you don't have talent in the trenches, you see you can get dominated like you did last week with the Washington football team, absolutely whooping that ass. What about you, Ian? Where are you going with offensive line?
Yeah. Just to pick up what Freddie and Maddie said, there's definitely some consistency and something clicking with our O-line at the moment. So yeah, possibly the best of a bad bunch, but I'd definitely go with us.
Yeah. And so I'm not going to make us go down and break down each defensive position at this point because we've already wasted enough time as it is. But let's think of defense as a whole. And looking at the NFC East and how these defenses are playing right now, the Giants have a good secondary. They're all right, but they don't have a defensive line like we do. They're mediocre, but they're not that good. Freddie, what defense are you taking in the NFC East?
Washington football team, baby.
Without
you
a
kidding
doubt.
me? We got, you know what? We can, because on offense, we can talk about NFC East all day, but right now we have a top 10 defense. I think we're number 4 in total defense right now. Are you kidding me?
We're disgusting. At the moment, they're playing incredibly well. They have been the one shining light through all of this. I know we've gotten hard on them over the first couple weeks, but they were playing with an inept offense, and that can really hamper some defenses and how well they can play. I agree with you. This defense, top to bottom, with Kendall Fuller in the back end being a turnover machine, having the stout defensive line with Chase Young, Montez Sweat, without even talking about Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen. I think this defense is the best group in the NFC East by far. It's the easiest decision that we can make of the day. That's why I wanted to make it last. What about you, Maddie?
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's not much to say. It's Washington. Yep. It already was Washington. And I think now we're also working off of some mullet power with Cole Holcomb back in the lineup. So that gives us even more of a leg up. Yeah, Washington all the way.
You just got the title of the pod today. Mullet power, baby. That's what we're rocking with.
Love it.
So now let's move on to one of your guys' segments. Whichever one you guys want to go first, Maddie or Freddie, which one?
Well, since we talked about O-line, I'd like to, because what I wanted to talk about specifically, which is going to be a talking point, it's been a talking point since Trent Williams got out of town, is the glaring issue at left tackle. Now, I know in recent weeks it's died down a bit, because it's not really sexy to talk about left tackle anyway. Everyone wants to talk about quarterback. We want to talk about big name players and all of that. Jaron Christian, who got off to a pretty bad start. Let's just call it like it is. It was a pretty bad start at the beginning of the season, but he's kind of started to get his footing a little bit. Like, he'd been playing better. I hadn't been hearing his name. And generally, when you don't hear an offensive lineman's name, that's a great thing. Yep. I didn't play last week, and I was a little bit concerned about that. But Cornelius Lucas, I mean, he played well in his place, but what I wanted to specifically talk about is what we're going to do at left tackle, because is it a situation where, is Jaron Christian going to be the guy who can be the starter going forward, or are we still going to have to try to find a replacement there? And then also depth there too, because we don't really have, that swing. We don't have a tie-in Secchi anymore.
Right. You're absolutely right, and that's what a lot of people were talking about with Cornelius Lucas, because with the brief stint that he had with the Bears, he played right tackle and left tackle. But your question is 100% correct, Freddie. What are we looking at left tackle? Do we think that Cornelius Lucas or Jaron Christian is the answer? And I don't believe so. I do a bunch of film breakdowns going over college players, and one guy in particular that I absolutely love is Jackson Carman, the left tackle from Clemson. He reminds me of Trent Williams so much the way he plays, and he's not expected to be a first-round talent. They have him mocked in the second round. So if I'm the Washington football team, if they have to spend the first-round pick on a quarterback, that left tackle has to be an area of need in that second round, and that's where I would love to go with. Freddie, I agree with you. I do not believe the savior at left tackle is on the roster at the moment. What about you, Maddie?
There was one more thing. Excuse me. There was one more thing that I wanted to bring up too, because I know that a lot of listeners are probably going to say, "Well, what about Sadiq Charles?" And here's the thing with Sadiq Charles, because he's injured, we might not even see him the rest of the year. But the word on him was that, and I don't even know if he was specifically drafted to really be that replacement at left tackle,
correct,
or even right tackle. I think that it's going to be another Brandon Sheriff situation. He's going to kick inside. He's probably going to play left guard, and he's probably going to play really well. But I don't think he's going to be the left or the right tackle in it for his career.
Correct. And when I did his film breakdowns before the draft, I said that specifically in a shortened offseason because of COVID, with everything going on, I do not think that he would have enough time to be able to progress in the shortened offseason to play left tackle right away. But his athleticism, his strength would make him an instant star at left guard, just like Brandon Sheriff did. I'm 100% with you. What about you, Maddie?
Well, I think I would pretty much, be in the same boat as both of you. I think that the good thing is that we are seeing, decent left tackle play at this point, where it's not a glaring, like, it's just horrible, because then you see the depth that we very possibly have with the Jaron Christian that's young. That's a great thing, because that's something that we have lacked. And so if we can find that at this point, that's awesome. But yeah, I would agree that I think, you don't have that piece where it's like, yeah, and nobody feels comfortable at this point. Nobody feels like, okay, we've got our guy. Nobody's feeling that way. So if you're not feeling that way with left tackle, such an important position, I think you keep looking, and you can, like in the draft, you can find these guys, and it doesn't have to be your first round pick. You can find those guys that can be that guy even later on in the draft. So I definitely think the search still continues, and hopefully that's something we can address this offseason.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can all say in agreement that left tackle, they found a good plug. And they found two good plugs in Cornelius Lucas and Jaron Christian for the time being. They're doing the job now, but they're not like franchise holders. You're not going to carry them over for 5 years, in my opinion. Now, what about you, Ian? Do you believe that the left tackle is on the roster?
Yeah, I agree with what's been said about looking at next season's draft for the left tackle position, because we do lack the not just the experience, but the depth in that position. And it is we've been speaking about it since pre-season last season about that was the area of concern, and here it is still. So that's something that we definitely need to be addressing, because I agree, Kyle. We've got pretty much a plug gap in there at the moment. But if one of those guys gets an injury, it puts us at bare bones there. So I think we definitely need to be looking at that as one of our priority positions.
Yeah, and something I've said for a long time: Washington football fans have been not greedy, but they have been spoiled with left tackle play. Going back to Chris Samuels, and who was right after him, Trent Williams. We've had such good left tackles here. We haven't had to really worry about that position. And this year, kind of showing you guys how important that position is. Now, Maddie, let's end this episode with your segment. I believe it's probably one of the better segments that we're going to have here. And it is a great topic of discussion, so I'll let you start it off.
Well, as Freddie was saying, a lot of people don't want to talk about O-line because they want to talk about other positions like quarterback. Well, guess what, Freddie? I want to talk about the quarterback position. So, obviously, my big thing is, obviously, I think nobody really is saying, Kyle Allen's the guy. Like, he's played well. He played well against the Cowboys. He limited his turnovers. He limited his mistakes. He looked better than he did the week before. And I think that, obviously we've still only seen a small sample size with him as the quarterback of this offense and seeing what he can do and how he can operate within this offense. But my question would be, obviously, I don't think it's any question that we're going to be looking to the draft, this offseason to see if we can find finally that guy that we're going to have, for years to come. So my question would be, is Kyle Allen good enough? Is he going to prove to be good enough by the end of the season that you roll with Kyle, even if you get a quarterback that's great, but may need a year to sit, because a lot of these quarterbacks, even a first rounder, may need a year, maybe not a year, maybe a few games, whatever. Is Kyle Allen going to prove to be good enough to be that guy, or are we going to have to go out and get, another vet, or, because at this point, I think that Kyle Allen, if he continues the way he does and just gets even like incrementally better, I think he's good enough to run this offense. And if our defense plays as well as they're now looking to play, and those pieces continue to develop, we get Gibson just controlling the run game with McKissick as well, that 1-2 punch. I think it's possible that he is good enough to be that gap quarterback. But I just wanted to see what y'all think about that as well.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And what you're basically saying is Kyle Allen doing enough to be able to say we can draft a Tua next year to sit for a couple games, learn under Ryan Fitzpatrick, and get him ready whenever he is ready in a couple weeks. I think you're absolutely right about that. I don't know if Kyle Allen is that good yet, Maddie. And the one aspect I need to see it is withholding of the turnovers in multiple games in a row. I need to see consistency there. If we're having this kind of Rex Grossman mentality every single game, you can't mortgage that going into next season. Let's have it a straight up competition and let the best quarterback win at that point. In my opinion, once I see that, I will believe so. But as right now, Maddie, I don't believe so. What about you, Freddie?
I feel like what's going to happen this offseason is we're going to draft a quarterback, and I'd be shocked if we didn't draft a quarterback in the first round. Okay. If we don't, then like you said, the Tua situation maybe, but I think the leash should be very, very short. And I'm talking like 1 or 2 or 3 weeks. If he comes out and throws a whole bunch of picks in that first game, we're putting our new quarterback,
right.
We're putting Zach Wilson in the second quarter.
Right.
I mean, if we drafted a quarterback late, sure, but I feel like if you draft a quarterback in the first round, wherever we pick in the first round, he's going to be named the starter. There's not going to be a competition, and there's no reason for there to be a competition. What would be the point? Even if Kyle Allen is, at this level, and our, rookie quarterback is a little bit lower than that level, you're drafting him knowing that his ceiling is so much higher. He's probably already going to be in many, many ways better than Kyle Allen anyway. So you're just going to put him in. He's going to need the experience. He's going to take his lumps. He's going to have weapons around him. He's going to have Terry McLaurin in his third season. He's going to have Antonio Gibson in his second season. He's going to have some other weapons we're going to bring in. He's going to have a lot more cohesion. And at the same time, he's going to have one of the better defenses in the NFL for the first few seasons of his career. So, yeah, I don't envision Kyle Allen being the guy next year at all.
Well, the one aspect of that, Freddie, is Scott Turner, because it just seems like the one cheerleader that Kyle Allen has in the room is always Scott Turner. And I just feel like it's going to be hard, like kind of like RG3 with Dan Snyder. It's going to be hard to get him away from
Jay Gruden talk
right.
that you got going on there. Jay Gruden and his
Kirk Cousins,
his little
Colt McCoy. No, Colt McCoy.
I mean, yeah, but that would be a whole nother. We could talk for 3 hours about the whole Scott Turner thing.
Right, you're absolutely right, Freddie. You're absolutely right about that. What about you, Ian?
I think the thing with Kyle Allen as well, I think we can already see what his potential is going to be.
Right.
He's not going to come back after this bye week and be Pat Mahomes. So I think we can already see where that level's been set. That's obviously going to be, what we're going to have for the rest of this season. And as long as he can minimise the turnovers, and obviously he's got the great D-line as well, then hopefully, we can have a better second half to the season. But I think we need to draft and draft high next year to get somebody else in. Because like Freddie just rightly said, if Kyle Allen's here, then you might get a draft in here, but soon they'll be coming up here. So yeah, I think he'll obviously be in place for the rest of this season, but then we'll draft high for him.
Yeah, the one thing though I will say is that would be unfortunate, disappointing in my opinion, because, Ron Rivera has talked about competition. And if we draft the quarterback, I want him to earn it. I don't want him to just get thrown in and say, yep, this is yours, here you go. Because we saw with RG3, if they do have success, it can destroy a quarterback. And that's just not what I want. I want to have him compete it and win that job. All right, everybody. Well, that's going to wrap us up for this episode. Thank you so much to everyone for coming on for the Fan Podcast Meetup halfway through the season. Freddie, thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much for having us.
Of course, Maddie as well. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it.
And where can folks find you guys in your great podcast that I have already subscribed to on iTunes podcast, but where else could fans possibly find you guys?
Thank you for subscribing. You can find us we are the HTWeAre podcast. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, Google, a whole bunch of others. We're on all the major podcasting platforms. You can find us on Twitter at HTWeAre. And, we started this about a year ago. MaddieJane had a podcast that she was doing on her own. And then we came together, we rebranded, we launched this whole thing, and we are, or we try to be at least, the Fan Podcast. We're a weekly podcast. We put out an episode every single week. So yeah, if anyone is listening here on Burgundy Zone, which is my favorite podcast, and I'm not just saying that because you're in front of me, Kyle. It's absolutely my favorite Washington football podcast. DC Tweet Team's close second. But
I've always told them there is no
check us out. It's great weekly content, and you can subscribe, and we put out an episode every week, and we do some cool stuff.
See, look, Freddie, there you go, all being selfless and everything, because I was about to toot your guys' horns and saying that Jason Wright's favorite podcast, Anointed, for you guys, and how great of work do you guys do. Obviously, Jason is incredibly intelligent. He knows what he's doing, and he gave a lot of credit to you guys, and for good reason. You guys work hard, you produce a great product, and you obviously care about what you do. Again, guys, thank you so much. Maddie, thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Ian, where can we find you, brother?
Find me on Twitter. I'm Washington UK 2. I also help out every so often with Andy on the DC Tweet Team podcast. If I shout loud enough, Andy will be able to hear me because he lives 5 minutes away from me, ironically. And I was meant to be going out with him last night, but looking at him out, he's drunk. I'm glad I stayed at home. Yeah. So that's where you can find me. And Freddie, I'm definitely going to go and subscribe and check out your podcast now.
Yeah, I saw that.
So much.
And Kyle, just thanks again for having me on from the far reaches to this side of the pond. It's always great to talk football with you guys.
Of course, Ian, you're a biggest fan. You really are. You've been with us from the start. You and Andy, you guys are incredible, reaching over from the UK. And I really do appreciate you guys all coming on to the podcast. Again, go like and follow them on Twitter. You can follow us on YouTube, iTunes Podcast. We're on Twitter, Facebook, Google Pod, Spotify. We're all over the stratosphere, as always. And then we're also going to send the file of today's episode to Maddie and Freddie for the HTWeAre podcast. So if you'd like to check this episode out on there, you can go follow us on there as well. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Let's beat the Giants next week. Washington football. Woo!